Hello, and welcome to Tone Chugs and Harmony, your weekly podcast about all things rhythm guitar. Through our guests, we will gain insight and knowledge on what rhythm guitar means to them. Today, we are joined by Alicia Cordisco. How you doing?
Jason, thanks so much for having me on. I am doing great today. A little hot here in Arizona, not gonna lie, but other than that, doing well.
Awesome. Yeah, I can only imagine. It's been toasty in Sacramento, so I'm sure it's worse where you are. Actually, outside today looks like there's a nice breeze, so I'm stoked.
Yes.
Before we jump into today's topic, we're going to do some vitals and some insights about our guests. So we're going to let you kind of ramble for a little bit about yourself and things you're involved in and all that. So I think it's the best is to start right there. Just who are you and what are your projects?
All right, sounds good. Okay, so I am currently in a number of projects, but I'm going to highlight two. So I do a lot of just like random recording projects and things, and some are more intense than others, some are more known than others. But I'm primarily known for playing in a power metal band called Judicator. I co-founded the band with John Yelland in 2011, 2012-ish, and played until technically 2019, but announced in 2020 that I left the band. Recently, I have rejoined the band. So as of time of recording, June 2026, I am back in the band as a songwriter and guitar player. In addition to that, my biggest project outside of that is a band called Transgressive. It is a thrash death protest band, primarily focused on basically like political and historical issues of liberation of marginalized peoples. The name sort of implies that it focuses on transgender rights, but honestly, that's like one sliver of the pie. Primarily did fundraising for the band through the first couple of years. We raised about $10,000 for abortion funds and for Trans Lifeline. However, recently we have switched to a more traditional format as we're doing more and more things that require money to be in a band.
We all know that.
Yes, so if you want to do things, you got to spend money. It sucks ass.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're working on a new album as well. So that's definitely my highest profile project outside of Judicator. Other than that, I am working on, I release solo albums decently frequently of various genres. I've done a symphonic power metal album recently, and before that, a black metal album. And I'm working on a melodic death metal band right now with my good friend Alex Edwards from Soul Mass, and that is called Wraith Storm, and hopefully that will be my next release.
That's very exciting. You're so busy and always got something going on and always pumping out the riffs. And that's why today's topic is perfect for you. And we'll get into that a little bit later. I like many, I'm very excited to see you back in Judicator. I mean, I was picking up the hints that were being dropped. I just thought, I mean, I thought it was going to be like a special appearance at Grillfest. So I didn't see the reunion happening, but that's even more exciting. So I'll be out at Grillfest. Yeah. Quick shout out to Grillfest, everybody. It's a metal festival thing going on that John Yellen has started in Utah. If you want to see the return of Alicia, that's the place to do it. I'll be out there. It's in September 12th, right?
Yeah, September 12th in Midvale, Utah. All day event, great bands, grilling, lots of grilling, medieval combat, luchadors. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see the mighty return. I am stoked. All the other great things you've done with Transgressive too is awesome. Just check out all the music. There is so much and so much variety. So there's got to be something there you like. And so let's kind of get into that a little bit. So here's a question I'm curious about because I've answered this before, and it's always interesting when I hear this. And I have a guess of what your answer will be, but I want to hear it from you directly. Do you consider yourself a songwriter first or a guitarist first?
A songwriter first. Yes.
That would have been my guess. Yep. You're the guitar, right? We see it as the tool, but I think songwriting is the passion. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love guitar, don't get me wrong, but I'm definitely less like guitar nerdy than other guitar players. I don't know shit about gear. I don't know shit about being a Luther. Like, I can play and I can talk to you about theory and technique all day, but when it comes to like being special interest in the guitar, I'm such a casual.
I think yeah, we're the same when it comes to that. I've been posting more reels on social media and stuff, and a lot of the times I get asked questions of like, "Oh man, what's your tone?" I'm like, "Dude, whatever the quad cortex gave me." Like, I'm sorry, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not.
What did the producer dial in for me?
Yeah, like I've been asked like, "Oh, what's your tone on that album?" I was like, "Oh, whatever the reamp is." You know? So, um, I have learned that I do like Ingle amps, and I say that because a lot of the times when someone's reamped for me, more often than not, I'm like, "Ooh, I like that one," and then I'll ask them what they used. More often than not, an Ingle amp is mentioned. So, if I had to guess,
Nice.
I like Ingles, but that's about as far as that goes, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what are some of the biggest lessons you feel you've learned for songwriting, especially someone who's dabbled with so many genres?
Yeah, absolutely. So, especially with the genre thing, for me, I think the most important thing as a guitar player who is in a songwriting role primarily, um, honing your style, like your individual style, regardless of genre, I think is really important. Like, you can play melodic death metal or you can play blues rock. If your style is dialed in and intentional and you're focusing on cultivating that style, the listener, theoretically, the attentive listener, which we know they aren't all, but the attentive listener should be able to tell reasonably, like, this is the same person. There should be identifying marks in your playing that you can jump into any genre and it's like, oh, okay, this is Alicia on guitar. I think that has really allowed me to be successful as a songwriter. And certainly people have said that, but I think I finally found my confidence in it in recent years.
Awesome. To sort of continue a little bit of the same question, more on the songwriting standpoint, have you found it difficult, or what tools would you say you have used to be able to jump genres, right? Because there is a knowledge in there is a knowledge within each to know, certain chord progressions maybe, or chord types, or riff types, whatever. How have you found, you've been able to do that, or key points that made it easy for you? That was a very I hope you understood the question.
I think I'm picking up what you're throwing down. Yeah. So for me, when it comes to genre, one, I've always looked at genre like guidelines. So it's like, all right, we might be playing melodeath or whatever, but that doesn't mean if you write something from another subgenre, you shouldn't include it. Like, you write where the song takes you, and those little idiosyncrasies that come from your other influences are what makes that music sound fresh rather than just checking a list of boxes to play to whatever the genre is. So when it comes to genre, I think technique is what I look at to identify the genre. Like, okay, if we're playing old school death metal, like, we're gonna have slow, chuggy, groovy riffs, and then we're going to have high tempo tremolo riffs, and we're going to use primarily dissonant scales or chromatic scales, use minor fifth harmonies, things like that, that are common hallmarks of the genre. Things fall outside of that, that's okay. That's where your style starts to come in and cultivate that sound. But starting with those building blocks, that's what I look at as far as genre. Now when it comes to personal style, that's where things uh, get a little more theoretical or abstract. So, like, for me, when I think about my style and how I like to construct a riff, for instance, I see my style as a blending of very percussive and rhythmic, like lower end right hand technique, blended with things that are more lead and melody oriented, that almost carry the top line of the song in the left hand technique. So, like interweaving cool picking patterns with neat little lead licks that have like their own voice and charm to them. I call them little tongue twisters, is what I like to call them.
Nice.
um, and kind of combining those two in interesting ways to make riffs that one stand out and two um, can not just like have a cool riff under the song, but also like start to form the melodic basis of the rest of the song. They start to inform, the vocal melody, the bass lines, the other lead guitar lines, etc.
So if no one could guess, today's topic we're doing is songwriting. But we're gonna be so here's the thing to remember as we listen through the episode. We're gonna be focused on the guitar, primarily rhythm guitar's role in the songwriting. So I might ask questions that seem odd, or you might be like, well, I don't write like that, or I wouldn't write a song like that. Again, we're focusing on the guitar's role of the songwriting. So because there's many great songwriters, including metal songwriters, who don't even use the guitar to write the song. So not everything starts with the guitar. So I just want to say that because some of the questions I might ask might seem a little like, well, that wouldn't make sense anyways. But again, we're focusing on the guitar, right, everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to jump into the next part of rhythm guitar as a foundation with songwriting. So when writing a lot of the stuff that we play, how much of the song's identity would you say comes from the rhythm guitar?
I would say like bare minimum, it starts at 50%. Um, it's the largest chunk and foundation in how I approach songwriting, and I think metal writers in general, and many other genres. There's lots of guitar oriented genres, but yeah, for me, like 50% is the starting point. Um, and where it goes from there is really going to depend on how vocal centric the song is, how alternative instrument focused the sound is, like if it's more keyboard heavy or if there's more like weird percussion things going on or more synthesizer stuff, or if you have symphonic elements, or how lead guitar oriented it is. If you have more solos, more leads, that will kind of determine the split from there, if that makes sense.
What to you makes a rhythm part memorable?
Yeah. So it like you're saying, it depends on the context of where it is in the song. Like with the main riff, I kind of already spoke to my approach with riffs that kind of stand out and carry the melody or the character of the song. But that doesn't mean that other sections can't stand out too. When I think of like a riff for something that is more vocal centric, like in power metal, I think of choruses because it is so easy in power metal to just go, okay, it's the chorus. If I find an interesting chord progression, all I have to do is play it, and I can just let everyone else kind of take over from there. And sure, you're defining the chord progression, which is going to inform everything else. But on those parts specifically, and it's funny, I just did this with Adjudicator EP that I just finished recording. We have the main chord progressions for the chorus, and thinking about, okay, but how do I make this stand out? Because everyone else already has the basis of what they need. The chord progression is going to inform the melodic structure, but how do I make this more interesting from a guitar playing standpoint without walking over everything else? So filling in those little cracks with just little variations and little intricacies, I think is a way to make a non-guitar centric part stand out, or at least be memorable, even if it's not the standout part, if that makes sense. Like when you're on the turnaround of the chord progression, if you're doing, let's say you're doing 4 bars, right? And you're doing 4 different chords on each of them. Okay, instead of just playing those 4 chords, what can I do rhythm wise to tie those chords together? Do I put like a little picking pattern in at the each of them and change it a little bit each time? Do I take maybe 2 notes in the scale between one chord and the next and a tremolo pick down from one chord to the next one? Do I put in a little lead phrase if there's enough space in the arrangement, if the vocals aren't walking over it or something, to tie the chords together. So I think about them as like destinations. Each chord is a destination. And what can I do on the road to the next one to make it a little more of a memorable walk, if that makes sense?
Right. Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. I like that a lot. Um, and with that, I do the kind of the same. It's been really nice when you've worked with singers for a long time and you can trust them because you can, like I said, when you have the chord progression, sometimes it makes it a little easier, at least for me, because like I'm like, all right, I can trust them to fill in the blanks, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, but when I listen to a lot of my really, really, really old songs, like the first few Dire Apparel EPs, um, and before I had that concept of like, oh yeah, other people can do things too, and the guitars are doing so much, but not like in a good way. It leaves room for like nobody, and it almost like takes this weight off the shoulders when you like, okay, like you can sit back a little bit sometimes and trust the others to fill in the blanks, which we will get to in a little bit, talking about how we can do things like that. Um, but have you ever, like in your younger years of songwriting, would you find yourself falling into that trap too of just writing like riff soup in such the worst way? Because as a guitarist, for me, it was like, oh well, I got to keep it interesting all the time. Did you have those problems in the early years where it's like, man, like basically, when do you know the riff is serving the song?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a balance. I definitely had to find, and working with singers over time in like repeated situations definitely helped me as well. I'll tell you what's made a huge difference for me in recent years is working with an all-star bassist. So Leona Hayward plays bass in Transgressive and Raystorm, and we also played together in Project Drone Wolf, which was like technical thrash metal. And she's goddamn like one of the greatest musicians I've ever seen in my life. If you guys aren't familiar with her, she primarily plays in the band Owlbear, and she's also in a band called Rope in Seattle, and was in a band called Weapon Lord and 50 other bands as well.
Nice.
Um, yeah, but she's just like virtuoso level talent. So kind of the cool thing that I've learned with her is, one, like she helps me like find space for her to flourish and make the music more interesting while I take a step back. But the more interesting thing to me is I've also found in working with her, I can push myself to a higher technical level that we can go to together. So it's kind of like it goes in both directions. Like instead of just writing the middle and writing, the riff soup as we call it,
Right.
um, she's working with her, and her talent has helped me be able to like, okay, when can I pull back? And then that's when she takes the center stage. And then there's times like, all right, now when do the two of us go the fuck off and speed down the highway together? Um, and that's been a really cool thing to experiment with and think about when I'm writing things in Transgressive in particular, but also when we were in Project Drone Wolf.
Right. Yeah, and I like how you mentioned the take off together, right? One kind of advice I got that has always stuck with me and I've always liked. It wasn't really directed at me, but it still sort of stuck with me. A guy working on us for the second Prime album. Uh, this was back. Our drummer Boston. We love Boston, but he comes from a prog metal background, so he's throwing in all these crazy prog drum stuff on these power metal songs. And to be fair, like I kind of told him to, because back then I was listening to a lot of death, and death drums are pretty intense. So I was like, yeah, dude, go ham. Like I was still kind, I still even hadn't figured out like, okay, sometimes less is more. But I remember the guy saying like, if you're going 110% all the time, then like it's not impressive. Like he was talking about, he's like, a lot of these guys, they'll sit back at 80% So when they do go that 110%, everyone's like, "Oh, fuck," you know. And
Yeah.
that really kind of stuck with me. It was that good, like, yeah, like, okay, not every part needs to be as insane as it could possibly be.
Absolutely.
And that really stuck with me, and is I think has helped as I continue to write songs and get better and stuff. So it's just a good reminder. You don't always have to be at 110%, right?
Yeah,
Um,
the dynamics of it, I think that's the big learning from, working with singers and bassists on your songwriting is learning how to be better at dynamics.
yes, exactly. Um, and actually, perfect segue. It's like we planned this, but I do want to get into talking about how we elevate the rhythm guitar through our arrangements and the dynamics and adding things, right?
Mhm.
Leads, acoustics, everything like that. Like, when do we know when to kind of bring them in? Like, when do we start to add the layers, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
know when there's too much going on?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting for me, like, because um I think that being really solid on rhythm is a great way to learn how to be a better lead player, a better acoustic player, a better poser, because you can take those lessons from rhythm guitar and apply them to it. I mean, the simplest way I tell people and tell myself even to think about arrangements for lead guitar and arrangements for acoustics and even like or orchestral stuff when I'm writing keyboards is to just think of it like you would think of writing a riff and how you would write two guitars dueling with each other. um, when you're sitting down and trying to write like an interesting finger picking arrangement or a layered acoustic section, I generally try to start with a chord progression, try to find really good voicings of those chords. Start with the basic chord, find a good voicing for it, and then from there, it's kind of like I was saying with the writing those chorus arrangements. All right, what can I lace in between this as I'm picking it, or lay over top of it with another guitar that's just like a little catchy riff within it, and then all of a sudden, I've got a melody idea, and now I can start tying those chords together, making sure the notes are right, making sure everything sounds good, and I've just found by doing that over and over and over that it's been able to like elevate the complexity or the simplicity of like my acoustic playing. Um and same with lead playing. Whether it's writing harmonies or writing polyphony or counterpoint lead playing, or whether you've got three or four leads going at the same time, whatever it is, simple or complex. I basically like I start with a riff, but then I remember that riffs are um, not the be all end all.
Right.
If I start with a little lead part that's like a little riff, then I can expand that into something else. So
Now,
I
do
guess
you?
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh,
No, I'm good.
yeah. Do you ever write a melody first and then build off that with rhythms or chord progressions or
Yeah,
anything? Yeah.
yeah. I would say with leads, and especially theme leads. Like when I think of a theme lead, I think of like the top line of a song, like the first main lead that you hear that kind of repeats throughout the song, the
Right.
the motif or whatever you want to call it.
That's
With
I love that
leads,
you
I
use
tend
that
to
word because I have a questioning for you. But
okay,
you
sounds
might answer it right now, but go ahead. Yeah.
good. Yeah, so I tend to start with that and then find the chord progression underneath it when I'm writing leads. When I write acoustics or symphonic stuff, keyboards, I tend to start with the chord progression. Um, I'm not sure if there's a reason I do it that way, but I just tend to find that like when I'm writing acoustics and keyboards, I want to have like a really pretty progression under it and
Right.
then color it in, if that makes sense. And when I want a lead, I want people to be focused on the lead, and I want it to kind of be like something you could hum by itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it. Um, Now, when I write a lot of my stuff, I'm usually chord progression first, riffs first, but I've been doing it so long that way that it's just sort of ingrained in how I write, but it is fun to get to write to a melody, because for me, I don't know if you can relate. You might do something you wouldn't normally do, as far as the chord progressions and stuff goes. So the best example I have for myself is when Heather and I did that cover of Blood Upon the Snow from God of War. I mean, that's a
Mm,
very slow song that we turned to metal. So all the melodies were already there. The chord progression was there, and getting to turn it into riffs and arrange things around it, it was really fun. And there's things that I did in it that I probably wouldn't have thought to do if I was writing the riffs first.
yeah.
So this is a little admission of myself, and like something I'm not strong at is doing leads first, but it is something I want to get better at because I think there is a lot to be desired to do it. A lot of cool things you can do, instead of just doing the chord progression first, because you kind of box yourself in, I would say, when
Yeah.
you do the chord progression first, because you've told yourself, all right, this is what I'm working with. This is my canvas. I have to paint over it, right?
Right.
Where if you do the melody first, now you have more room with the chords to play around.
Mhm.
So it's really cool, a lot of fun. So, the question I said I had for you is, how important do you think reoccurring lead motifs are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in conceptual albums, which we've done a lot of in Judicator, I've always been a big fan of those. We have, goodness, I'd say three of our albums have really iconic, even motifs in them. So, like on our second album, we have the title track instrumental, Sleepy Plus Out, and it starts and it has this kind of marching motif in it that reoccurs in the song Blut vom Himmel, which is like the epic centerpiece of the album. And then on our fourth album, The Last Emperor, the first song starts off with this part that has this motif that goes "Blessed are you" and has this like vocal passage, and it's under a heavy version of the motif. And then this reoccurs at the end of the album in a acoustic format. Just the same thing rearranged for acoustic, and then the lyrics slightly changed to reflect the journey of the album. So as like a thematic tie, I really find motifs to be excellent way to show the progression of storytelling. And you can do that within an individual song too. You know, the easy one, the kind of, and I admit I'm being lazy when I do this. The easy one is to do it at the start and the end of the song.
I do that a lot too.
You know, like, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you know what? It's classic. It works. Like you start on it, you end on it. It's like this is the start of the song, this is the end of the song. It's a
Yep.
bookend. A
Yep.
bookend is a bookend works great. It's really effective. That's an easy way to get a theme across. Um, but you know, taking variations like that I mentioned on an album level and putting that into a song, I think can be a really powerful way to show a dynamic journey through the song, especially depending on like if you know the song subject ahead of time, which I almost never do, but you know, sometimes you get lucky. um, or if it's a longer song and you want something more dynamic, you know, taking those leads and rearranging them into something different, whether it's for a different instrument, a different tempo, that kind of thing, or different like melody arrangement. So like, you know, at the start of the song, maybe you play it in one octave with an octave harmony on it. In the middle of the song, maybe you play it an octave higher with a minor third harmony, and you change the rhythm behind it to make it a little more dynamic. So there's this sense of progression and escalation
Right.
as you go on. I think that can really help people feel the momentum of a song. Like I'm going on a journey through the song, and it really rewards re-listening to the song to feel that. Um, and then variation, of course, you know, there's always the right little variations on it. And if you're Andre Olbrich, you know, you can do that all day.
Yeah. Yeah. That guy. Um, cool. Absolutely. Yeah. I have the habit of like the start to finish, because it's almost, it's almost like I feel uneasy if I don't sometimes. Like, oh, I didn't resolve the song.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just good closure, you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Like, oh, this we're gonna bring it all together. We're gonna bring it all home, and so that's sort of how it feels. And then we talked a little bit about acoustics, but do you? So when you're writing a song, do you set out like, all right, I know this song is gonna have acoustics, or does sometimes, like we've mentioned, you said it already, but sometimes the song just takes a life of its own. Um,
Yeah.
but are you often seeking moments of like, where can I fit a softer part, or does sometimes it just feels right, you know?
Yeah. It kind of depends on where I start with the writing. If I start with an acoustic piece, the first question I immediately have to ask myself is, what part of a song is this if I'm writing an acoustic piece? Like, is this an intro to a song, or is this some sort of extended bridge, or is this an outro? Because that will really inform what the rest of the song looks like. And I can't tell you how I pick what that is. But it is something I think about, like, okay, I've got to find a direction for this. Like, is this good enough to start the song? Is this good enough to intersect a song? Um, Excuse me. Now, when it comes to just like writing a song normally, like I'm starting, let's say we start with like a heavy song and it's your typical, like, all right, we've got a verse and a chorus and kind of going along and it's good so far, but where does it go from here? I think the hardest question I have to ask myself is, when do I do the Master of Puppets?
Yeah,
which is
I,
which is where I just stop it and then we go into something random and rebuild the song from there. Like, it stops and goes into something completely different that's soft. Like, when is it okay to do that?
yeah, that's something I wish I did more of myself. But it's almost like, I don't know if you agree with this, but there's a vulnerability to that because if it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. Um,
Yeah, yeah. And
and
the reviews are going to be like, "Oh, this song overstays its welcome and feels disjointed."
yep, yep, yep. Um, Now, I can't remember if I've said this on the podcast, but I'm going to put my stance on it now. I've talked about this many times, but I know the song might be, I don't even want to use the word overplayed, but it's easily we could say it's a very popular song. But in my opinion, it is one of the best structured metal songs of all time. I will die on that hill. Every
Mhm.
section, like it is, like you said, when do I do the Master of Puppets? And I feel the reason that's an example given is because it is the best example of how each transition is just so good. Because
Yeah, I mean, it turns into a completely different song and completely rebuilds itself back into the original song
yeah, and the
beautifully.
the way they, talking about going back to reoccurring, not really lead motifs, but just parts, right? The way they go back into that iconic intro riff is unreal.
Hmm.
It's so smooth. It's just like
Oh
whoa.
God, when it hits, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Um, yeah, I will for like I Master of Puppets is one of those songs that I don't care if it's overplayed, if you will, or whatever. It's to
Yeah.
me, it's one of the when we're talking about things like in today's episode, that is the best example of doing all of the things we're talking about perfectly.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh
I heard that song 23, 24 years ago, and I've been chasing that high ever since.
huh. Yep. Yep. Um, not to keep going on it, but man, even when they build back out of it and it's like they go to the F sharp and it's that crunchy dun 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 dun. It's like, how does it sound heavier and you went higher? You went to a higher
Yeah,
key. Like, I don't know, just kudos to those boys. It's songs like
hell yeah.
that they've forever earned my respect, no matter how many Lulu albums they make, whatever. Um,
Right.
anyways, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. Sorry, guys, I derailed. You get me talking about puppets. And so, yeah, how do you write counter melodies in your songs and make sure you're not cluttering? So we've talked a bit about this already, so we might have already answered most of it, but essentially just adding sections, adding parts within the guitar, but making sure it doesn't get over cluttered or there's just too much going on. And Blind Guardian's a
Yeah.
good example of this for me, where I feel like there's so much happening, but it all works so well. And then when I try it, it just sounds like a clusterfuck, you know?
Yeah, that can be really tricky. So one thing that I really go through and comb through with a fine tooth comb as close as I can when I write sections that are more than just a twin guitar lead. So especially like speaking of Wraithstorm, in Wraithstorm, it's melodic death metal, so I really don't have to worry about the vocals too much because the vocals are a percussive growled instrument. I don't have to worry about their melodic intersection of what I'm playing typically. And so there's a lot more like polyphonic stuff going on. And what I mean by that is like we'll have a rhythm guitar that's two parts, right? Like it's one riff and then it's a harmonized version of the riff, and then there'll be a top line lead over it, and that top line is harmonized in a standard way. So you've already got four guitar lines going on playing two ideas, and then we'll add in a third like lead guitar that is just one lead voice, kind of dancing around everything. And all of a sudden you've got five different guitar parts going on for three different ideas. And that can get very cluttered very quick, especially when you throw in bass, drums, and vocals on top of it. So when thinking about, that as like a standard clusterfuck moment, and knowing that like it can get even more clustery from there, depending on what you're going for. One thing I like I was saying, I go through with a fine tooth comb, is making sure that the part that I want to stand out is not clashing with anything. So typically in a part like that, I want the rhythm guitar to sit furthest back. It is basically just the foundation of everything. So it's probably going to be the simplest part, but it's going to, it should still be good on its own, obviously. And then the harmony that goes over it, definitely want to make sure that there is nothing clashing with it in a way that would cause problems. Like sometimes dissonance is good, especially in death metal. Sometimes we want to go for something that sounds nasty, or something that sounds very chaotic or very busy. But when we're adding even more layers on top of it, I really go through section by section to make sure, like, okay, do all of these things make sense from like a chord theory standpoint? Is the scale correct? All that. Am I getting any weird sounds at any particular moment? One thing I do with that is I'll take the section in Guitar Pro and I'll like slow it down to 50% speed so I can really listen and hear and make sure I'm paying attention. And I actually have trouble with this because I have audio processing disorder. So sometimes my ears fill in the blanks or don't hear things correctly, depending on how things are going at a particular point in my head. But it helps me to literally like slow it down, listen to it, hear everything in context with each other, and make sure there is nothing that jumps out at me as clashing or sounding too busy rhythmically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. I've never tried to do that. Like slow it down a little bit and really listen. Um, I just hope for the best, right? Throw things at the wall. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to do with you, if you're down, I want to do a song breakdown. So I would like you to actually choose one of your songs, and what I want for the listeners is to actually, I'm giving you homework, listeners. Go listen to whatever song we do right now after this episode, so you can hear the final product. But what I'd like you to do with one of your songs, any song you want, if you have one that has all the stuff we've touched on, even better. But I want you to basically go through, how did the song begin? What was the original riff or idea? How did the arrangements evolve? What layers were added later? What almost got cut? What did get cut? And then when did the song finally feel complete? I can re-ask you any of those questions if you need. But basically walk us through like step by step of from the moment you picked up the guitar, hit that first chord, to the final product.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll have to forgive me. I can't go through the theory of it because
That's
I
fine.
didn't prepare for it. I am definitely a pen and pencil, need to reference things type person, but I do want to use the song "Let There Be Light" by Judicator from our fifth album, "Let There Be Nothing." Um, it is a song I love, and I really like playing it. And funny enough, when you play any individual guitar part, it really doesn't feel like there's a whole lot going on. But when you take the whole thing in context, it is a monster of a song with that just sounds huge, huge. And I think that's why it's one of our more popular songs and why it opens the album so well. So, with that, I started with a chord progression, just an acoustic chord progression. Again, I couldn't tell you what the chords were offhand. I haven't thought about this in like 7 years, but
That's okay.
so I picked four really cool voicings of chords, and it's in the key of A flat. And I knew I knew I wanted it to start on a slow acoustic opening, and I knew I wanted it to be a slightly longer opening song because we had done like the short, punchy songs to open an album, and we had done the like doing an intro track and then a beefier song to open the album. I'm like, what if we put like a pseudo epic to open the album? It's 7 minutes long, so it's not quite epic length, but it's got all the pieces of it, you know? So I'm like, what can I do with this chord progression? And I want to develop this chord progression in interesting ways throughout the song. Um, so it starts on two acoustic pieces, and those acoustic pieces are based around the first chord, which is, I think it's just like a regular A flat minor chord, nothing special. And this chord progression actually repeats several times throughout the album in two different acoustic intros, as kind of like that album's motif, if
Okay.
it were, rather than using like a top line. Um, so it opens on that, and it kind of escalates from there. So once the distorted guitars kick in with John doing like one of his iconic screams, it goes into an electrified version of that, which is just, typical power chords. Um, and those are basically the basis of the main riff and the chorus. Or I'm sorry, not the chorus, the main riff and the verses. And then the pre chorus is a slight variation on the opening acoustics picking pattern. So it's like a distorted version callback to the intro.
I love when songs do things like that. Not to cut you off, yeah, but
Yeah, yeah.
I love the callbacks from a slower part, but on a like a heavier arrangement. Yeah,
Yeah, people in doom metal, they're like, bring the riff back, but slower. I'm like, in power metal, we bring the riff back, but faster.
exactly. Yep, yep.
um, so that kind of gets us up to the chorus, and then the chorus is basically just a picked version of the four chords that I started with. Just like bouncing off the decada with the chords interspaced between. And it gets a real nice epic chorus from John. And then, like I said, there's not a whole lot going on the rhythm guitar, but the chord progressions and the variations on picking them are kind of carrying each section to the next. And I've got these lead harmonies that are acting as the main riff instead of the rhythm guitar, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I need to stop saying if that makes sense. I'm saying that so much.
It's okay.
uh, So that kind of informs the first half of the song. And then again, the idea here was I wanted to take a chord progression and develop it throughout the song. And I knew I wanted the song to start and end in very different places. So it starts on that acoustic piece. And yeah, that acoustic piece is referenced again in the pre-choruses. But once we get through the second chorus, the song breaks down and turns into something completely different. It turns into this 3/4 section of acoustic picking, with some really nice like bass leads over it, and it just gets really somber and calm and kind of haunting. The cool thing is it's the same chord progression from the chorus, But instead of, a 4/4 tremolo picking kind of thing, it's 3/4, doing like a little waltzy finger plucking exercise on the chord. So we're taking the same idea and we're just putting it in different contexts and different variations. So same four chords, but just presenting them in very different ways, and it ends up sounding super different, but it ties them together. So even though we're going from a fast pace, heavy, dark, assaulting, battle themed chorus into a haunting, somber acoustic section, that melodic construction ties them together. So that's kind of how I try to develop the idea. Even though it could be considered a jarring transition, it's got that bass element tying them together. So that's why I think it works.
Right.
And then when it comes back, it comes into a completely different type of riff. The whole rest of the song is in 3/4, I think. And it's mostly like guitar leads until the end of the song. Goes into these cool guitar harmonies, a couple of different variations on it, and then a guitar solo, and it's all just this big chugging 3/4 kind of thing. And it eventually ends on that.
So it sounds like, if I'm understanding, for the most part, each section just follows the same chord progression, and then you just and and then you take, and that's the thing too. And like you said, like it's 7 minutes, so it's like you don't have to always do a lot to keep it interesting for 7 minutes. Little changes can make all the difference. Like sometimes we just need a new quick little stimulation. And
take a simple idea and develop it.
Yeah. To piggyback off that real quick, the final theory from Helium Prime is literally the same thing. That was a purposeful decision where I was like, I want to write this song and literally have every part. Like I wanted to go for, it's not a poppy song, but I wanted to go for the pop vibe of like, I'm going to use the same four chords for every part, but each part's changed up, and I think it keeps it interesting. It's not 7 minutes. It's much shorter, but same sort of idea. Okay. So everyone, you said Let There Be Nothing, right?
Let There Be Light. Let There Be Nothing is a very different song.
Okay. Oops. Yeah. Let There Be Light. Go listen to that song, everybody. And sort of, when you listen, keep in mind, what Alicia said, and try to do that if on your songwriting as well. Like get a chord progression you like and challenge yourself to write the whole song with that chord progression and see if you keep it interesting. A simple, like you said, simple thing of changing the time signature can be enough. And fantastic. Great. Before we get you out of here, I always do some rapid fire questions with the guest. So,
okay.
These
rapid
fire. So these, I want you to just, whatever comes to mind first, we'll go for it. And but before we do, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I love nerd talk about songwriting. So,
hell yeah.
Secretly, I'm always hoping to learn something myself that I can apply. Okay, so what do you think is a very underrated songwriting tool?
Very underrated songwriting tool. I would say slowing your song down and hearing it slow and really sitting with analyzing the little pieces like I was mentioning earlier, using time dilation in Guitar Pro and Reaper.
Yeah. I like that one. That's one I've never tried. So I think that's a great one. Most common songwriting mistake.
I would say overwriting. And it's one I'm gonna throw at my boys in Metallica. You just repeat things too many times and it goes on for too long and you don't edit it down. I think that's very easy to do in heavy metal.
Can I give a super hot take that you and others might get mad at me about?
Sure.
I feel like Death did that in their later years. Like there's a specific, like I understand parts repeat and things come back, but there's something Death did. And for the record, I still love all these songs, everybody, but there's something Death did that always just got to me. They would play out the structure of the song and go to, as we've called the Master of Puppets section, a quick bass interlude or something, and then they just start the song over and go through it one more time. And I'm just like, huh, we're doing this on every song, huh?
So I actually I agree. I think the Sound of Perseverance is super guilty of that.
Super.
And my favorite death is Human, because I think that is like extremely tightly written.
Yeah.
Um,
And again,
so I actually agree.
I love the Sound of Perseverance. Flesh and the Power It Holds is one of my favorite Death songs, but it's super guilty of it. And that's the one I was referencing. Like, it goes to the little bass interlude, and then the song just starts over. And then they go through it again. So, yeah, I think overwriting, like, the song, don't have the song be long for the sake of a long song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, fantastic. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. One of your favorite songwriters in metal or just in general?
Michael Ackerfeld from Opeth is my favorite songwriter, probably of all time.
Okay.
That dude can do anything, and he makes a 12-minute song sound like 3 minutes. And he can make a 3-minute song infinitely re-listenable. I am always striving to be more like Michael.
Nice. I'll be honest, I super expected Hansi or Andre, but Michael's great too.
Hell yeah.
I think my answer, I know this is for Alicia, but I would go with the Guardian Boys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think is more important, riffs or the arrangement?
I would say the arrangement. Good riffs can make an arrangement special, but a bad arrangement can ruin good riffs.
Yep, I agree. And then this is one I always, or two more, sorry. What I like to ask is just one of your, like, underrated rhythm guitar players that you think.
Mark Shelton from Manila Road, rest in peace. He is probably, I mean, even as a lead player, he's underrated. Everything about Manila Road is fucking underrated. But yeah, that guy had a 20 plus album career. And he busted out riffs from old space rock to straight up death metal, all through the lens of like fantasy epic metal. And honestly, like he might be the GOAT.
Nice.
He might be the GOAT.
That makes me want to listen a little bit more. I love some good fantasy metal.
Oh yeah.
And then last question, just any advice you would give to up and coming younger guitarist and people wanting to get into guitar and songwriting?
Yeah, absolutely. Learn songs. You're going to have people tell you to do exercises all day long, and exercises are important. Don't get me wrong. Don't skimp on the fundamentals and the basics, but there is no reason you shouldn't be learning songs right away, and songs will teach you technique. Songs will teach you structure. Songs will teach you the bigger picture of why you're doing those exercises.
Yep. I fully 100% agree with that. Learning songs is literally what made me a better songwriter. Like, when I finally just sat down and dissected what these songs were doing, that's what helped more than any class in college, any book, anything. Like,
absolutely.
You start to, talking about genres and stuff again, you start to learn the patterns, because genres sound like genres for a reason, right? We're reusing things that have been done to get that sound, and you start to figure out what those things are, and you're not copying, you're borrowing, if anything, but power metal is going to sound like power metal because of certain chord progressions, because of certain lead arrangements. Death metal is for the same reason, black metal, whatever. So especially songwriting, I would say learning songs, like, what's helped me is, if I really want to, I'm like, man, I want to write a song like this, right? I don't know how to do it though. I will listen and learn songs like this, whatever this is. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, what are they doing here? Oh, they're doing this chord progression. That gives this sound, and then you take that and you use it and you make it your own. Like you can't, a song can't own a chord progression. Like chord progressions are what they are for a reason. So that's my long way of saying I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, and I know you know this and you kind of hit on it, but just for absolute clarity for the listener, I don't mean go learn a riff from the song. I mean go learn the song and jam that shit front to
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yeah, that yeah, because I feel also, and maybe you'll agree, I remember in my younger years when you did just learn riffs, right? We all learned the intro to One, or we all thought we knew how to play the intro to Master of Puppets,
Yeah,
and that was it. So then we're just playing these short little 10-second burst of riffs, and you eventually sort of hit this moment of like, man, I need to learn a full song. So yes, learn, especially if you're really new and just starting. Man, when you learn your first song, you feel so cool. Like
yeah,
all
yeah.
the way
That's like true
through.
power.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
unstoppable. So
I think the first song I learned front to back was "For Whom the Bell Tolls," and I felt like the hottest shit ever when I
awesome.
did that.
Man, I think I can't remember mine. I think my brain wants to say "The Trooper" by Iron Maiden, but I could be wrong. I don't remember what my first full song was. But anyways, that's besides the point. Thank you, Alicia, so much for your time. This was great.
Hell
I
yeah.
love nerding out and talking songwriting. I know we did give some shout outs at the beginning. Reminder, everybody, Grillfest, September 12th, Midvale, Utah. The return of Alicia with Judicator. But if there's any other shout outs or things you want people to know before we get out of here, please inform them.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Just look up Alicia Cordisco, and Judicator is also on Instagram. Transgressives on Instagram. Best places to follow all three, plus Bandcamp. So yeah, hope to see you out there. And Jason,
Fantastic.
thank you so much for having me on here. I love the idea of this podcast, enjoying it so far, and happy to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you're enjoying it out there and listening, please share it with your friends, review, do all that. Also, give feedback. I love good constructive criticism on how I can make things better. So please let me know. And if you want to join the Discord, the Rhythm Dominion, find the link. I'm still kind of working through it and getting things going. I haven't even done a soft launch yet, but I will soon, but join it if you want to be around like-minded guitar players, songwriters, all that good stuff. We'll see you in the next one.